You know the drill. It is 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. It is the preseason watch list. It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom going through the NFC East today. And of course, Bloom, we got to start with how about them Cowboys, which when I think of Dak Prescott, and then I think of Zeke, and then I think of Amari Cooper, I already thought of DeMarcus Lawrence because he got paid, but everyone else is like waiting. Like, hey, Jerry, your franchise, Forbes said what, 5 billion?
Exactly. Just
5 billion.
Give me the couch cushion change. Yeah.
Exactly. So hey, Jerry, let's pay these guys. But starting with Dak Prescott, he's probably going to get like 30 million a year. That's a quarterback, right? And he's a good, solid starting quarterback. But Bloom, what is he as a fantasy quarterback? We've got some news, the Allen Hurns thing. Like, we'll get to all that in a little bit, but Dak Prescott likely to get paid soon enough. How does he respond with his big fat checkbook?
Very well. And it's easy to tell a story that Dak Prescott is one of the steals of the drafted quarterback. It's easy to tell a story that about 15 guys are going to be the steal of the drafted quarterback, and 12 of them might be. You really can't go wrong at quarterback this year, but Dak Prescott falling well outside of the top 10 quarterbacks in a lot of drafts. And when you look at the Cowboys offense from the big picture, this is exciting, right? It's exciting because Travis Frederick is back. It's exciting because they have Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. It might not look that different than Jason Garrett's offense, but at least it's not Jason Garrett and it's not Scott Linehan. At least we don't have to say Scott Linehan again. Maybe we will, just to curse his name or something like that. So that's good. This offense should be better than last year. And we saw what Amari Cooper's addition to the offense did. Amari Cooper's going to be back for the offseason to integrate even more so. He's not coming in midseason to this offense. Jason Witten is back. They added Randall Cobb. So there's a lot of things. Even Tony Pollard, a weapon. This offense is really moving into the 21st century. So Dak Prescott, we already know he's good as a runner. And look, we've seen Dak Prescott be a strong fantasy quarterback for long stretches. And when he's not, it's because, well, Ezekiel Elliott is suspended or something like that. Or what did they even have at wide receiver going into the year last year? All of those questions are gone. Well, Ezekiel wasn't on the team playing. It's sad, Cease, because on one hand, like, oh, good, we didn't record something talking about Allen Hurns. We have to say, well, there's probably not going to be a Zeke holdout, but there's probably not going to be. So it's good for Dak Prescott. I'm not talking anybody out of taking Dak Prescott as their quarterback at ADP or even around early. And I'm not talking anybody out of being optimistic about this offense. It's not going to become one of the best offenses in the league, but it's going to be a very good offense.
Yeah, and Dak Prescott's going to be a very good quarterback for them. Now, behind him, they love Cooper Rush. We'll watch the continued progression of Mike White. They also added Taron Christian, who's the South Dakota State Jackrabbits baby quarterback. Kind of their Taysom Hill, Bloom. How many teams are going to say that about? Like, hey, they got a Taysom Hill-ish guy, kind of.
I want to sing Night Ranger, really. That's all I think of when I think of Taron Christian. Look, they've got two quarterbacks in Cooper Rush and Mike White that are better than a lot of the backup quarterbacks we're discussing as we go through the preseason watch list. So they're in a good spot, and they're going to stay in that good spot. So they've identified good talent later on in the draft. They're developing them. I won't be surprised, Cease, in a few years if we're talking about Cooper Rush or Mike White getting a second contract somewhere with a team potentially looking at them as a starter.
To the running back position, of course, Ezekiel Elliott, top pick in any draft in any format, at least top 3. And this year, waiting for his money. What's the latest, Bloom? Again, we're recording this on July 25th. So whenever you hear it, like, he's staying away. What'd you say? Team plane? Something like
right? He wasn't on the team plane. But look, if he doesn't show up by I think August 6th, he's going to not get a accrued year towards free agency, and he only has 3 of those. So if he wants to become a free agent, he has to show up by August 6th, and I think he will. Not that he doesn't deserve to be paid more than what he's getting paid under a rookie contract, but from a fantasy standpoint, there's a really good argument to take him number 1 overall because this offense is going to get better. Because he is going to get more touchdown opportunities if this offense is better, because they finally started using him as a receiver. Now, you could say, well, their receivers were so bad last year with Witten and Cobb and a full season of Cooper. Maybe he doesn't get as many targets. I mean, maybe, but he's going to get the volume. He's going to have the highest carry total of any of those top 4 running backs, maybe the highest touchdown total. His touchdowns took a strange drop last year. So I'm not talking you out of taking Ezekiel Elliott number 1. I think if you get him number 4, you're excited, and he's not on the board after number 4.
When people bring up the fact, Witten and the weapons now around Dak Prescott and how it could lead to a reduced role, Bloom, I think the genie's already out of the bottle.
Yeah.
I don't know why it wasn't sooner with Ezekiel Elliott as a receiver, but it's like, why do you want to go away from passing to that guy?
No, well, I mean any play where the ball's in his hands, and again, we're going to see Elliott in top form in an offense that's in top form in the prime of his career. So it's exciting. I don't want to say it because I'm as a Steelers fan born in 1975. The Cowboys are still our mortal enemies, right? But the better chance of the Steelers Cowboys Super Bowl this year might be the Cowboys.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was pretty easy. Bloom, how does the defense kind of feed into the running game? We know, and not even just from DFS angles, but just like from season-long angles, and improved Cowboys defense. And Leighton Vander Esch, my God, like when I said like there's shades of, I didn't, because before the draft last year, I was like, there's shades of Brian Urlacher to his game. No, he's effing Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that kid's incredible.
Did he play 8-man football, 6-man football?
Yes, 8-man.
8-man football.
I don't think any 6-man players made it to the NFL. If they did, it'd be my favorite. But anyway, Bloom, like that improved Cowboys defense feeds directly into more Zeke.
Yeah, it does. The game scripts. And just quickly on this defense, for a fantasy defense to take late in your draft, the Cowboys are looking great. They've got Robert Quinn. They've got DeMarcus Lawrence signed now long term. Of course, Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch might be the best linebacker duo in the league. You've got Chris Richard and what he's done with his secondary, including Byron Jones translating very well as a corner. So it's exciting times to be a Cowboys fan.
Exciting times indeed. Let's get to the rest of the running backs behind Ezekiel Elliott. You're just worried about suspension,
right?
Which hopefully doesn't happen. But Tony Pollard is there. Mike Weber is there. Let's talk some Buckeyes running backs, right? Darius Jackson's still kicking around. So again, preseason watch list. I just kind of want to check in Pollard and Weber specifically, just to kind of see how they look in the pro game and kind of gauge. Okay, how's that pecking order behind Zeke?
Right. Zeke's ultra durable, but he's already kind of on notice from the NFL after they called him into the office. Never like to get called into the principal's office, right? You have Mike Weber, who might project as the backup, as a runner between the tackles, what he can do. Tony Pollard's going to be exciting to watch in the practice reports and the preseason to see if they really do use him as a weapon, because he's got that speed. He can play receiver, he can play running back, and maybe he's just so dynamic that they say, well, even though Weber's more the meat and potatoes running back and Ohio State back, Pollard, who was in the shadow of Darrell Henderson, he's got a lot to offer too. Darius Jackson, a spark freak, has been in this organization before, so it's something to watch, because stranger things have happened than Ezekiel Elliott going down with an injury, and certainly Ezekiel Elliott getting suspended at some point this year because of something that happens wouldn't be that strange considering his history.
Stranger things going on at the wide receiver, because it is season 3 of Stranger Things. I haven't watched it yet. Don't spoil it for me. But we have a trio of receivers to talk about now with the Cowboys. The season of miracles. I almost went a little Hans Gruber there on you, but like you've got Amari Cooper, obviously. Fantasy GMs know him well. You have Randall Cobb moving in there as a slot, and then Michael Gallup. It seems like every one of these, Bloom, we're talking about some sort of CSU receiver,
right?
Whether it was Higgins or Gallup. We'll get to Preston Williams in a little bit, but like, okay, Michael Gallup, I want to see what more he can do. This larger role, Hearns just released there, but we've got 3 to talk about with Cooper, Cobb, and Gallup and their fantasy relevance in 2019.
We'll start with Cooper, and on one hand, you can say, well, if this is what he did coming into the offense midseason, what can he do with a whole offseason to integrate into the offense and riff with Dak Prescott? So he could be a wide receiver 1 for fantasy, a top 10, top 12 receiver, which is a high bar in this NFL. Also, you could look back at what he did at the end of the season, and he had numbers for multiple games in a row that you wouldn't even want to have in your lineup. And really, it was just a few massive games, massive divisional games, so they were very important games, that put him over the top in terms of his fantasy production on average. He's going to cost you probably a 3rd round pick. In the 4th round, I'm probably running up to get Amari Cooper. In the 3rd round, that's a running back rich round. You also might be weighing him against the likes of AJ Green or Keenan Allen. It's a little tougher call there, but I won't talk anybody out of Amari Cooper, because you could see, again, this whole offense taking a step forward, a lot more efficient. We've already seen Dak Prescott hyper efficient, and not with a receiver the caliber of Cooper. You have Gallup, Gallup's going to take a step forward. Gallup's a nice player. Excellent pick. He's going to be an outstanding addition to this offense as he continues to grow. However, if we start to take the big picture and we have Zeke getting his 300 plus carries, plus getting 70, 80, 90 targets, maybe even a little bit more. You have Cooper obviously dominating wide receiver targets, Cobb out of the slot, and Jason Witten. Well, talk about Jason Witten. How is there going to be enough there for Gallup to be consistent? Will he have some big games and big plays? Absolutely. Will he be a better player than he was last year? Absolutely. I don't know if he's one of those guys I'm targeting in the second half of my draft as an upside pick, although it's just pure talent and ability and what he's already shown might overcome that. And then there's Randall Cobb. Just stay healthy. Just stay healthy. See, every year it's the same thing. First few games of the year, oh, that's Randall Cobb that I know and love. And then by week 3, week 4, he's on the injury report. And then he looks like a player that's like 38, not 28. Is he 28, 29? Because he signed that second contract when he was so young. So if he can just stay healthy and is sprinkled in as a slot element, filling in for Cole Beasley, now up in Buffalo, that'll work just fine for this offense.
Yeah, Randall Cobb with those piercing blue eyes can look into your soul. Or he'll steal your soul, crush your soul when he gets hurt in week 3. But anyway, behind the trio, we've been waiting on Noah Brown. It's like kind of, looking at your watch, like, all right, the physical tools. What? Tavon Austin, regularly the butt of jokes. Bloom, I'll tee you up if you want me to. I'm looking at young guys like John Van Johnson.
Exactly.
Jalen Guyton. Like, these young receivers are more interesting to me. I mean, I'll still keep track of Brown. I have him some deep dynasty formats because of that, size, speed, the physical tools that Brown possesses. Just kind of, tipping point for everything, right? And Noah Brown, the time is running out. I'm interested in John Van Johnson and Jalen Guyton.
And there's some names here for sure. Brown, I think, gets a better chance to make the team. Web back, Tavon Austin. He still has some things to contribute. See if Kellen Moore has some looks to draw up for him. John Van Johnson, one of the stars of the spring for this team, certainly ticketed for the practice squad. And if he has a great summer, they might not be able to slide him through. So I want to mention Cedric Wilson. And did Cedric Wilson's dad play for the Steelers in the Super Bowl? My brain is like fizzling out when I'm trying to remember when he was with the Steelers.
Yeah.
Because everything is 3 degrees, 6 degrees of Steelers. But Cedric Wilson at Boise State was a good, it's like Byron Pringle and Cedric Wilson. I remember watching both of them thinking, wow, these guys can separate. These guys have some speed. These guys have some vertical ability. And because of injuries last year in the preseason, we never got to see them really and what they could do. So I'm really excited to see him take 2 on a rookie year.
Well, let's move to the tight end position. Jason Witten put his hair down and went back to the football field 1 year in the booth. And that's a tough job. Like, everyone will regularly bag on Jason Witten like he was terrible in the booth. Yeah, it's a super tough job. So, yes, Jason Witten wasn't great in the booth, just like, thousands of other people haven't been great in the booth. So whatever, be out on the field and be solid. I mean, at least we're not talking about Rico Gathers trying to, stay healthy and do something, or Blake Jarwin. To me, Dalton Schultz is the most interesting, Bloom, because he's a Stanford tight end. He's got great size, and Stanford tight ends always figure it out, whether it takes some time, like Austin Hooper, to take some time. Now Jason Witten's here to take over, kind of maybe not necessarily stunting the growth of Dalton Schultz, but I know in the deep dynasty leagues that I play in that I have Schultz in, because I was excited about him last year. Not excited as, let's say, a Dallas Goedert, something like that, right? But with Dalton Schultz, I've already got stock. I'm not selling it. I'm just kind of watching because I believe in that unless you're Levine Tololo, right? I believe in those Stanford tight ends eventually getting it. Don't know if that happens with Schultz this year. And I guess we're talking about everybody, but is it because we know Jason Witten? Because I'm bored by Jason Witten? Like, what's going on here?
Because we know what Jason Witten is. But one of the things I want to comes to my brain is somebody out there who's listening to all 32 preseason watchlist episodes, tally the number of times we say a player's name that's not part of the team that we're on, and those are the players you should draft, right? Like, we're subconsciously telling you who to draft. We don't even
Dallas
realize
Goedert.
It. That's another. I'm not going to make it 3 in this one episode, although we did already talk about South Dakota State. San Diego State makes things of Kawhi Leonard now. But anyway, the other thing I want to say is I want to echo your thoughts really quickly on what Jason Witten did. I was not a fan of Jason Witten in the booth in Monday Night Football because I think he was trying too hard to be what he thought he should be instead of just being Jason
That's
Witten.
what happens when people get a microphone.
Well,
as a broadcaster professionally, I'll say this, Boom.
Yeah.
Like so many people, like they think you're supposed to put a camera in front of anybody.
Well, yeah, that's what I was
Oh my
going to
God,
say.
how does that change?
You led in with the drill, right? Because
Mhm.
when we did the 5-minute drill together, you were a natural. And I was only thinking of, well, don't do this, do this. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to look like this. And I was terrible on camera. Maybe now that I'm older and a little more marinated and seasoned, I have a little more DGAF, so I'd be better, Sorry, Joe. Should I say sorry, Joe, for that? We're on camera right now, but it's like
once Joe does the math down, give a hey,
wait a second, buddy.
Hey, buddy, could you please stop saying the DGF on the show?
We love
mayor
Joe so much. We love Joe so much. So I'm going to give Jason Witten a pass, but I am also going to give Jason Witten a look in like tight end premium leagues, in these best ball leagues where you might need a second tight end very late. Because last time around he had 63, 560, and 5 touchdowns. Newsflash, that's a tight end 1 in this day and age. I don't see why his numbers should fall off significantly from that, if at all. I think it's going to be picking up right where they left off. I'm not saying Jason Witten's going to win your league for you or anything like that, but as a bye week injury emergency filler, or as a player that you just know in any given week has a decent chance to go, 5 for 45 and every third week a touchdown, that's probably going to be Jason Witten this year.
All right. Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, well, there's some latent potential there, but so that classic preseason watch list player, in that we're going to get to see a preview of what's coming later, not this year, because Jason Witten's super durable,
right,
and handsome.
Speaking of handsome, our man Eric Edholm, we're going to shout him out twice in this series, called us the ultimate football odd couple.
Draft Eric Edholm?
Yes, of course, always. Number 1 in my book, am I right, fellas? Yeah. But I look at our shirts, and we don't plan this.
Yeah.
You're wearing a Beastie Boys shirt.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. I'm wearing Coheed and Cambria shirt. So
yeah. So basically we're old.
Coheed's rather new.
Maybe to you.
All right. That's a wrap for the Cowboys. 32 teams, 32 episodes, every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about on this show, the preseason watch list. It is the Audible. Many thanks for listening on iTunes, watching us here on YouTube, and with the G-Men. Does Daniel Jones take over sooner than you think? That's next. 3, 2, 1. Well, whenever I think about the Giants, I think, are they the new factory of sadness? Like the factory of Eli, and Eli always has that sad face. And like, I'm kind of mad at Eli Manning, Bloom. Do you know why?
The commercial with Odell Beckham?
No.
You wanted to be dancing with Odell?
No. Well,
lifting him up.
Right. No, I'm mad at Eli because he's keeping Peyton at the booth. Like Peyton doesn't want to say anything bad about his little brother, right? And I get it. Right. And Eli's not at the level he used to be, and all that kind of stuff. Like it happens, and not everybody's going to play till they're 45. You know what I mean? Not every quarterback. I think it's a bad assumption for us to be like, Joe Flacco's only 38. He's still got a few. No. Eli Manning. How old is Eli? 37. Yeah. Right. Whatever. It's like
younger than us.
Yeah. He's done. Wrap it up. And so, really, to begin the preseason watch list for the Giants, 32 teams, 32 episodes, every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on the show. And with Eli Manning, it's like, do we even need to talk about him, or does Daniel Jones win this thing from one? And it's not like Daniel Jones was great. In fact, very rough around the edges. And at the Senior Bowl, I just made some mind-numbing, baffling throws. Now, the Senior Bowl doesn't mean everything, right? Russell Wilson had a little bit of a shaky Senior Bowl, and obviously Russell Wilson turned out to be fantastic. But Daniel Jones had a god-awful Senior Bowl. Like, you watched him, and you're like, here's everyone else. They look fine, and then Daniel Jones looks like he doesn't belong. Like, I would have rather seen Brett Rippon there than Daniel Jones. Now, super athletic, right? We know about that athleticism. We know that he's got some moxie, but even in games where he has good games, go back and the Temple game, Bloom, and he had like 6 touchdowns. He should have had 8.
Right.
But he'll just make these mistakes for no reason, not mechanically unsound necessarily, but just maddeningly and wildly inconsistent. So kind of sounds like Eli.
Right.
Did they just get a younger version here? And does that younger
More
version
athletic.
start? Definitely more
Yeah.
athletic. Certainly more athletic. Like, imagine if Carson Wentz couldn't play. That's who Daniel Jones is. Seriously, he's as athletic. He reminds me from an athletic profile when he takes off to run. It's like, hey, that looks like Carson Wentz, except he can't throw.
Right. He should have been the next Taysom Hill. So the Giants, factory of sadness. I mean, it might be a little bit of a stretch unless the team gets demoralized. I think they can still keep this team pulling in the same direction, but it's disappointing. And from the big picture, good news. Good news is this. The offensive line is going to be better. I mean, they got Mike Remmers, so at least they're trying something at right tackle if he can stay healthy. They traded for Kevin Zeitler. So offensive line's looking good. Of course, you have Saquon Barkley, and he could be even better in year 2, should be even better in year 2. They signed Golden Tate, but trading away Odell Beckham. How big of a deal is that? Because when we watched the Giants over the last few years, they're just a different team without Beckham. And defenses are going to compress in. The Evan Engram has to stay healthy, or they don't really have Darius Slayton, Corey Coleman. Geez, I'm giving away the whole Giants episode here in this take, but this is kind of a boring offense for fantasy football, to be honest. So they're gushing about Daniel Jones. Pat Shurmur's. I don't think there's anything he can't do. So Eli Manning's going to start week 1 out of. Well, yeah. Well, and it's practice. I mean, that's the thing. And this is exactly the way, but like you said, even in the Senior Bowl practices, it wasn't there. But Daniel Jones, a lot of us will be eating crow if he is a good NFL quarterback, and it's possible. But if you watch his tape, and forget about the fact that he's at Duke and so on, if you just watch him, he doesn't look like a first-round quarterback. Like, you just get used to watching quarterbacks that go in the first round, even quarterbacks who don't always have the best results, but you understand, like, oh, I get it. Like, they want to harness that. They want to use that. You didn't really see that with Daniel Jones. But he's probably going to be forcing himself on the field at some point if Eli Manning is not basically rolling out the red carpet for him. It's a question of the team's record. It's a question of how much Eli can be connected to whatever reasons they're losing or making games more difficult. But in the spring, we heard a lot of reports that Daniel Jones looked clearly better than Eli Manning. And Eli Manning could continue to decline, like his brother, who basically fell off a cliff all at once. Now, Eli doesn't have 2 vertebrae fused together or whatever Peyton had going on. But it's going to happen at some point. And I think you have to factor that into all of the fantasy stock here. So, no, we're not taking quarterbacks. Maybe in 2 quarterback leagues, Daniel Jones is a good guy to stash away on your bench in Superflex leagues because of the running ability. But when we factor that in, then we start picturing, well, what's this offense going to look like? And that, to me, Cease, and I'm open to the idea that I could be completely off base, that's a material question. If you draw pick number 1 and you say, well, am I taking Saquon Barkley?
Right. Who do you trust? Hubba, 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 money, money, money. Before we get to Saquon and the trust level there.
Kyle Lauletta.
Yeah. What is it with Senior Bowl quarterbacks? Because they had Davis Webb, too.
Yeah, all the MVPs of the game. It's not the practice cease, it's the game.
The game. He's a gamer. There's nothing worse in football terminology than he's a gamer. He'll be terrible. The only gamer that was ever worth a damn was Chad Pennington.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear the word gamer, it's awful.
Or the whole 70s NFL, who like half of them were showing up still drunk from the night before.
Still worked down at the local garage and then played football in the fall.
Right.
Different time. Manly time. Alex Tanney, trick shot quarterback. Cool. Kyle Lauletta, get rid of him, whatever. I'm not interested in anything.
No.
With these. Okay. Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Again, the trust factor there. Now, here's the thing, Bloom. You and I naturally gravitate towards not necessarily counterculture, because it's kind of unusual what we just opened up a whole nother podcast. It's unusual what actually counterculture is, and mass marketed nonconformity.
Right. There has to be a monoculture for there to be a counterculture. Is there even a monoculture now? I don't know.
Yes. So we'll ponder those questions as we talk about Saquon Barkley, because when Odell Beckham Jr. hit, and then everyone's like, yeah, that's it. Can't do any more. And we're like, well, we could. Let's look at how he could. Yeah. Saquon Barkley, he's hit, and so many people. And not that I pay attention to Twitter, unless you put me in the mentions and I'll try to respond, whatever. But like, so many people were like, so Well, at Penn State, he only averaged 1 yard after contact, blah, blah, flipper. And it's like, Saquon Barkley can play.
Yeah.
Please, let's stop with the hyper analytics and the super advanced data when you put on the film. He only had 300-yard games in Penn State. Like, Saquon Barkley can play. I think he's clearly proven that. He's quieted all the stupid doubters out there. And now everyone, those doubters, oh yeah, he was really great. I mean, he was awesome, like one of the best rookie seasons ever. But can he do it again? Bloom, we say yes. Yes, he can.
Yeah, he can. And he's obviously a top 4 pick. Okay. Is he the number 1 pick? I'm going to say no at this moment. And I think it's because of Daniel Jones. Now, there's a good argument to take him number 1 anyway, which would be he's the most talented running back in the league. And it just doesn't matter. Like Adrian Peterson. When Adrian Peterson did 2000, who was his quarterback? Christian Ponder.
Right.
So is Daniel Jones going to be worse than Christian Ponder? Probably not. But well, no, that's the thing. And that's the thing, Cecil. See? And the other thing is Daniel Jones is a good runner. So is Daniel Jones going to dump off to Saquon whenever the pocket closes in or the play breaks down? Or is he just going to run? And these kinds of hairs that we are splitting are what you have to do if you're choosing between the top 4 running backs. I mean, I won't say quite interchangeable, but there's a good case for any of the 4. Of course, Elliott, Barkley, McCaffrey, and Kamara. And David Johnson, come a few weeks into the season, we might say he belonged to that group in hindsight. So I'm not taking Barkley number 1 overall. I'm probably taking Kamara, to be honest. Maybe it's the New Orleans air pollution or something clouding my brain. So look, I'm not going to also go to the mat and say, don't take Saquon number 1, whatever you do. But if you don't take him number 1, you're probably not going to get him.
Exactly. And Saquon Barkley, magnifique. Let's do it again. Behind him, I'm interested in Wayne Gallman, certainly. I'm afraid that Ron Jones is Paul Perkins. Mm-hmm. Ron Jones is not Jamal Charles because he's Paul Perkins. Because Paul Perkins wasn't Jamal Charles. He's Paul Perkins. So other than that, I mean, what? Maybe Jonathan Hillman, who they picked up as a free agent this year, as a college free agent. But Wayne Gallman's an interesting player. Swift runner, good receiver. Like his balance. So I'm going to watch to see what Wayne Gallman's looking like as that backup to Saquon.
Yeah, we have that perish the thought backup, just like we talked about with the Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott. Barkley's unlikely to go down, but is it Wayne Gallman or Rod Smith, who they brought in? And Rod Smith, speaking of Ezekiel Elliott backups, he can play some fullback. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. When he got on the field, when Elliott was suspended, he made some big plays. So I think he can beat out Gallman. Perkins might have something to say about this. So there is a backup running back battle. Gallman is a good all-around back in his own right, better feet than I think he gets credit for, even though he's an upright back. But this is wide open to see who has the number 2 job going into the season.
No, the number 1 job for the wide receivers goes to Sterling Shepard. It's on you now. Stay healthy, produce, and try to catch some of those shorter passes, whether it's Eli or Daniel Jones. And that whole quarterback conversation, it resonates within this entire episode, Bloom.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, Sterling Shepard has some skill. We know his game. There's nothing interesting there because we already know who he is. We know what he can do. Unless his quarterback's terrible, then what does he do? Golden Tate, kind of the same thing. And I thought it was kind of funny when Golden Tate said, Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback he's ever played with. And by the way, he played with Russell Wilson. It's like, yeah, nobody on that old Seahawks team loved Russell Wilson. Are you kidding me? They all hated that guy. That's why they're all gone. But now Golden Tate's there, Sterling Shepard's there. Okay, both known quantities, definitely known in the fantasy community. What do they do with the Giants this year, especially if it's Jones and he's stinking up the joint?
Right. So here's the thing, and I'm going to do kind of a overarching passing game take for the Giants, okay? And you kept hitting it when you said we know what they are. And this also is going to become a projections versus rankings take, okay? Because you're projecting the Giants passing game. You're going to project 3,000, 3,500 passing yards, even in a worst case scenario. And you got to divvy them up to somebody, right? So, you're going to divvy up 70 catches for 800 yards to Shepard and 70 catches or 75 or 80 to Golden Tate. And you're going to go ahead and rank guys based on these projections. But we know what they're going to be, and it's all downside in terms of uncertainty because of Daniel Jones. So the passing game is going to look like this. You have 4 main targets: Evan Engram, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and Saquon Barkley. And they may trade off weeks where one of them has a big week because of matchups or a big play or a broken play or who knows. But on a week-to-week basis, most of these weeks are going to be 4 or 5 catches for these guys, 50, 60 yards. Maybe Barkley will have better weeks when Eli is in, and maybe Daniel Jones will cling to one of these receivers that he makes good chemistry with later on. But none of these guys are going to greatly exceed in terms of Tate and Shepard. We're talking receivers here. There's no scenario where Tate or Shepard blows away their ADP, greatly exceeds expectations. It just can't happen. I mean, if Evan Ingram gets hurt, then this pass game just kind of collapses. If Saquon Barkley gets hurt, the offense collapses. So it isn't like, oh, well, in this scenario, you'll be glad. No, there's no scenario where Golden Tate is going to catch 100 balls or have 1,200 yards or 12 touchdowns. It just can't happen. So I'm just turning the page on the Giants wide receivers.
And if Daniel Jones struggles, then Dave Gettleman collapses. That's how that works. By the way, Bloom, Cody Latimer's wedding pictures made me blush.
Oh,
I just have him on my mind. And congrats to Cody. He
Yeah.
married his longtime girlfriend. But yeah, his wedding, they were like grinding on the dance floor. Cody put him out on Facebook. I was like, you go, all right, Cody, go for it, man. So I want to see everybody happy, right? Cody Latimer. Speaking of not living up to what you expected, there's Cody Latimer.
Yeah.
There's Corey Coleman.
Also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, yes. I never really felt that with Russell Shepard because he was always like an athlete trying to play wide receiver, whatever. Darius Slayton, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see what the Auburn kid can do, right? Alex Wesley, who's started on the PUP list. I wrote about it on our newswire a couple of days ago when they opened up camp, but he's the Northern Colorado receiver, super athletic profile. So certainly be watching him when he's ready to go. They probably shelve him this year. But out of these reserve wide receivers, anybody you'll be watching for in the preseason?
Reggie White Jr., because I get to say Reggie White Jr., Matt Waldman favorite, particularly for the practice squad probably. Darius Slayton could be that deep ball receiver they need. They need some sort of vertical threat on the outside. Corey Coleman could be that guy. We'll see. But yeah, this is pretty unexciting, and it goes along with an unexciting pass offense.
Yeah, until you get to Evan Ingram, and then you get excited,
Yeah.
certainly with his skill set, his receiver-like skill set, and then you go, I don't know if I can trust him. The tight end's been brutal, Bloom. We know that. If Evan Ingram's healthy, and I think even if Daniel Jones is in, he can't throw. He's going to be, where's my security blanket? Where's the closest guy to the line of scrimmage? Like, where's the dump off? Could be a lot of Evan Ingram if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, if he can stay healthy, it looks like he's okay to start camp. But you see some pointing to what Ingram did without Beckham and saying, well, what could that be now? But I still think that he, again, is competing with these horizontal passing game targets, Tate and Shepard and Barkley. And I just don't see Ingram. The thing is, this is a point for me to step back and say, you are taking not just a player, when it's a receiver especially, you're taking an intersection of that player with that quarterback thrown to him in that offense. And I just don't see him with as much of a chance to overachieve his ADP than Jared Cook catching passes from Drew Brees in the Saints offense, or O.J. Howard catching passes from Jameis Winston in the Bruce Arians offense, or Vance McDonald catching passes from Ben Roethlisberger in the Steelers offense. So I just think that the Giants, the passing game is not going to create overachievers. Evan Ingram could still take another step forward, and he's a very talented player, but this is not a fertile environment for fantasy success.
Backup tight ends, anything interest you? I know they signed Isaiah Seawright.
Right.
Wrote about that on the newswire. And good thing we didn't record this episode before Eric Dungy was waived, because that's the quarterback they waived. But anyways, Seawright, the Fordham kid, the pass catcher, don't ask him to block. Yeah, preseason watch list. But again, I'm not really excited about much of this offense, even the backups.
Yeah, and Syracuse. I missed my chance to say Syracuse there. CJ Conrad is getting some really good buzz early on. I think you're going to see him make this team and maybe eventually be a second tight end for this team. So on your deep leagues and your preseason DFS is name to remember.
I always feel like when we're going through this time of year, like when Mike Reese writes something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like on Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. And whichever one of the Wayans, because there's so many, the one Wayans brother stands up as the postal worker and he goes, message. Like that's CJ Conrad doing so. Oh, message. All right, Giants. We'll see if the message can be received. That is a wrap for the New York Giants here on the preseason watch list. It is the Audible, the Footballguys.com podcast, 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. Carson Wentz and the Eagles. They're ready to fly. Eagles fly. But does Wentz end up back on the injured reserve? We'll get into that next. Some teases are better than others.
Of course. My wedding outfit, I got a lot of compliments on. Stussy. You can rock your dad bod in those like pajama, like coordinated sets. They're like kind of like pajamas.
Nice. All right, 3, 2, 1. Carson Wentz is really good. Carson Wentz has also hurt a lot. He hasn't played a full season since he was a rookie in 2016, Bloom, and now they don't have the safety net of Nick Foles. We'll get into Nate Sudfeld because I really like Nate Sudfeld. We'll do that a little bit later. But with Carson Wentz, Bloom, it's only health.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not weapons around him. They got so many weapons. There's guys that they're not even going to use enough, like Dallas Goedert. How many times in the show do we talk about? I'm not even doing the Eagles, and we still talk about Dallas Goedert. The weapons around him, the run game, the addition to that backfield. The backfield's got like 9 running backs. Like it's not about talent. It's not about weapons. It's not about offensive philosophy. It merely comes down to whether or not Carson Wentz can stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, and he has the best set of weapons he's had around him. He's healthy going into training camp, so that's good. I think that, again, this is the year that but so many answers at quarterback might be right. Cease, we're going sword and shield, and you're saying I'm taking, can't believe Phillip Rivers is so cheap. I'm going to take Phillip Rivers, and I'm saying, well, I'm going to wait and take Mitchell Trubisky, and someone else is saying, well, I'm going to take Kyler Murray 6th, 7th off the board, and someone else is saying, well, Patrick Mahomes is there in the 3rd round. How can that be? They could all be right. Everybody could be right.
This is why 2 QB leagues need to start becoming the norm, because quarterback is so like, oh, I messed up on quarterback. Hey, on the waiver wire, I'm just going to grab Phillip Rivers. Like, yeah.
So
go 2 QBs, people.
But Wentz, because there's the running ability, because there's the deep passing ability, and this set of weapons. So we're looking at Philadelphia, and the main thing is, of course, great offensive line, but they add Deshaun Jackson. So now look at these elements you have mixed together. Deshaun Jackson deep, Alshon Jeffrey winning at the catch point, Nelson Aguilar back in the slot, Zach Ertz doing his thing in the middle of the field, Dallas Goedert, who was one of the stars of the spring, creating a mismatch. Even Darren Sproles is back. Isn't that wonderful? So, yeah, a lot of things intersecting at Carson Wentz. He just needs to stay healthy, and he could easily be a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Is there anything about them changing his playing style or changing a little bit of the offense?
I think that Doug Peterson is smart enough to not do that. I mean, and the other thing is, let's remember, he's big. He got that big extension, and it was a lot of money committed over many years, and not some structure that says, well, we want to see if you can get healthy. A structure that says, we believe you're our guy. We ride or die with you. So no, I think they're happy with what they have in Carson Wentz, and they're not going to try to square peg round hole him.
Okay, well, they actually scooped up Nate Sudfeld a couple of years ago off Washington's practice squad. He's a big, tall pocket passer. That's it. Got a nice arm. I've always appreciated Nate Sudfeld. I've told the story on this show before. I was going to go to the NFLPA game one year. God forbid. Sorry, it's not as good as the Shrine game, but I was kind of disappointed in the level of talent the Shrine game for a couple of years. And then I saw Nate Sudfeld was going to be there. So I went there. I was very happy about that. Sudfeld been watching closely since he came out. Same year as Carson Wentz, top of my head, Bloom. Correct me if I'm wrong. So now he's the backup without Nick Foles. Most likely, I know that Cody Kessler kicking around, whatever, Clayton Thorson, but no, and Thorson, you speak of athletic profile, like athletic, not very good accuracy, but definitely has an athletic profile a la Carson Wentz. Sudfeld doesn't really have that. He's kind of a big pocket passer.
So we'll watch Kessler versus Sudfeld just because Nick Foles has been such a key player in the NFL big story the last 2 years. So whoever the backup is, because again, we're talking about Carson Wentz injury history, that's important, especially because this team otherwise is built to go back to the Super Bowl. So that backup quarterback, if there was a way for them to keep Nick Foles for like $10 million, they probably would have done it, but they didn't have that option. So backup quarterback, and what happens when Wentz isn't in the game in the preseason, something that every Eagles fan and really every NFL fan should pay attention to.
Okay, let's get through Jordan Howard quickly
Okay.
because I think the guys behind him are much more
Mhm.
interesting. Again, Howard, the known quantity, commodity, whatever, and we know what he's going to do. Bloom, we also know what he's not going to do. That's where the other guys come in.
Right. So I actually think that Jordan Howard's a little underrated here. Okay. And here's how I think of Jordan Howard. He is going to be a running back 2 for probably at least the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season, and maybe longer. Uh, he's a good running back. I mean, his production is undeniable. He's running behind a great offensive line. He's in a great offense. He will have roughly similar to the value that Jay Ajayi had last year. See, where was Ajayi going at this time last year? 4th, 5th round? Is that about
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
Yeah. You can get Howard in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. So you're already getting priced in this idea that, well, there's the clock is ticking on Howard being in that Jay Ajayi role, in that not truly a lead back role, because you're going to have Darren Sproles doing his thing. You're going to have Miles Sanders at least mixing in. We'll see him. I want to skip ahead to that, but Howard's going to probably get carries to finish out the game, carries at the goal line. And in games that the Eagles are favored, it won't shock me to see him have like a 20 for 102 touchdown line. Now, again, at some point, Sanders might get moved in more, or game script might dictate that it's not a Jordan Howard afternoon, but everything around him is set up for him to succeed. So if you're in a 0 running back, do the opposite upside down strategy, and he's sitting there in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, and you can plug him in week 1 and then see where we go from there. I think that fits in that kind of strategy wonderfully.
Now, you mentioned Miles Sanders there, the rookie from Penn State. You're not Saquon. He pretends.
Sometimes he thinks he is, yeah.
He's like Jason Witten with a microphone. I pretend. So Miles Sanders is that, but he's also been hurt this entire offseason. So it's like, okay, Rook, you're not as good as Saquon, although you try to run, you try to like hesitate and dance, and like you. Anyway, Darren Sproles is there. I'm very happy about that. Corey Clement is there. He's no slappy. I mean, he's made some plays, big plays for this team. Is that change of pace back? Let's leave Wendell Smallwood and the rest of the guys out of it for now. But really, I look at that competition of the 3. Like it should be Sanders as the backup, but I can't say for sure right now if he can beat out Corey Clement. And then, well, you're not going to bring back Darren Sproles and not use him.
Yeah, Sproles is going to get used. If I think Sproles got something like 600,000 guaranteed or something like that. Look, enough that they know what they have in Sproles, and they know the element that he brings to the offense, and they can use it. Let's assume Sproles makes the team, and then you have the backup, the player that's going to mix in with Jordan Howard. And the Eagles are not a team. The Doug Peterson Eagles are not going to rush rookies. They're fine with bringing the rookies along slowly. So don't think that they're going to break ties in favor of let's get Sanders out there. Sanders is going to have to show that he adds value that Howard doesn't, and he can as a receiver, and he can with his athleticism. But Howard also can, behind that offensive line, is going to look pretty damn good. So Sanders, especially if he can't say, if we see him have another injury in the preseason in camp, we may barely see him this year. We may see them treat this as kind of a red shirt year. And like you said, some of these other guys, because the question is, did they go into the season with just Howard, Sanders, and Sproles? Or is there room now for a 4th running back to make it? Is there room for a Clement? Is there room for a Smallwood? I don't think it's going to be Josh Adams, but Josh Adams may catch on somewhere else. He looked pretty good when he got in last year. I don't think it's going to be Boston Scott now that they signed Darren Sproles. Boston Scott was going to be in that role, or Donnell Pumphrey, who could be in that role. San Diego State Aztecs, baby. But Pumphrey also. So really what we're looking at here, Cecil, when we get to the 49ers episode, spoiler alert, I'm going to say which of these guys is going to be on another roster come week 1, because they have more viable wide receivers in San Francisco than roster spots at the position. That might be what we're looking at here in Philadelphia.
That might be. And you know what Joe Bryant always says? Besides emailing us,
be excellent to each other,
cussing on the show. Yes, and be excellent to each other. He also says things change pretty quickly around here because Josh Adams, like, he's not going to make the team now. You know what I mean? And let's go Josh Adams, Gus Edwards. You know what I mean? It's like same guy.
Yeah,
pretty much. Like, and now Adams is on a team that is so stacked at running back. You're going to go from a strong rusher to, does anybody want me?
Yeah.
You know, so and again, if teams are out there, I guess this plays against guys like Duke Johnson Jr. or whatever, but like the Eagles are so packed. One of these guys, Wendell Smallwood, Boston Scott, like one of these guys are going to hit the wire.
Yeah, most
more
of them.
than one, right?
Yeah, and then next year another historic running back class is coming probably, and it's going to get even worse. So running backs need their own union.
To that I say double true. To that I say double down on Deshaun Jackson. His ADP is still way too low for what he could be rejuvenated back with the Eagles this year. Alshon Jeffrey, again, known quantity. So is Deshaun Jackson. But you saw what he could still do with Tampa. He needed a better, consistent quarterback play. That's what Carson Wentz will provide. I am buying Deshaun Jackson in as many leagues as I possibly can, Bloom. What say you about said strategy?
Yes, and we'll do the Deshaun Jackson treatment, and then as we proceed, and you tee me up some other takes. I think that it's important to understand this Eagles pass offense as a whole, and it's easier to understand how the parts are going to fit together because it's going to change week to week. But every week, Deshaun Jackson is going to be the deep threat, and he was a wide receiver 1 last year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Come on, he and Wentz, excellent chemistry immediately in the spring. And I don't care if he only plays 60% of the snaps because he's going to be running go routes and he can still run them in his 30s and beat guys down the field. And Matt Waldman would point out right here that Carson Wentz doesn't throw a good deep ball, and neither did Jameis Winston. And we saw Deshaun Jackson's value drop off with Winston. But I still, with the Jackson's there staring at me 12th, 13th, 14th round, yes, I'm going to pick him up. I'm going to see what happens because he's still got game and he unlocks so much in this pass offense.
Yeah, it's like finding the secret level in Mario World. Mm-hmm. Like you just unlock everything, blow your mind. Alshon Jeffrey won't necessarily do that, Bloom, but he can be a consistent target for you.
Yeah, he's a known quantity, and he may be the one receiver who plays most snaps. But, is he going to be the top red zone guy? I mean, now they have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So he's going to probably be replacing Deshaun Jackson. I was chatting with Zach Berman, one of the many great Philadelphia beat writers. Philadelphia beat writers, that's the scene where you actually do have fights on the side. Ever been a fight on the sidelines of Denver training camps, Del Valley?
No, but I got a Mike Kliss story from a Rockies game where he almost threw Tracy Ringolsby's hat into the crowd.
Ooh,
because they got in a little fist fight.
Yeah. So Denver's getting a little rough around them streets too. But
Philadelphia's got some really good beat writers, and then they have like some old, awful beat writers.
Sure,
just awful, old school, don't understand new media. Yeah. What do you mean website? Get out of here! Yeah. So I'm stories off the air, Bloom, but they have some really, really good, really good younger beat writers, and then they have some old, stodgy POSs that need to retire.
Sorry, Joe. No,
it's personal.
This acronym stuff is really weird. This is our workaround from the censors, right? This is how we become.
I know what POS means, buddy.
Right. We're slowly sliding into the R-rated podcast realm. No, but is the R-rated, X-rated. If you're watching and you're wanting your team to win against this wide receiver course, so now I'm going to do I'll use the Jeffrey thing to get into a whole take on this pass offense, right? Because that Zach Ertz is going to be doing what Zach Ertz does, and Jeffrey is going to do enough to probably justify putting him in as a wide receiver 3. He'll have some wide receiver 2 weeks, but he might also have some weeks where he's a lesser part of the game plan. Where Cecil, if Alshon Jeffrey, think of what Sammy Watkins did a couple of years ago with the Rams. So if Alshon Jeffrey just cancels out the number 1 corner, your big athletic cover corner, sticks to him all game and only has 2 for 25, mission accomplished for the Eagles. Because think about who's going to match up with Deshaun Jackson. Who's going to match up with Nelson Aguilar? Who's going to match up with Dallas Goedert? Who's going to match up with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the red zone? So that's fine. I just think that the upside's not there with Jeffrey. Now, where else is the upside? And we're kind of lumping wide receiver and tight end together, but I think that's how they're going to look at this pass offense. You have all of these different various targets. We already covered Jackson. Aguilar is going to be up and down, but not having as high ups as Deshaun Jackson, more of a late best ball pick. But he still also is going to play, 50, 60% of the snaps. Dallas Goedert's going to play 50, 55% of the snaps, and he's making strides. So week to week, this could be a very difficult pass offense to project. And this is the new frontier of fantasy football, especially if you're playing DFS, you already know this, that really what we need to do is get inside the coach's head and think, if I was rationally attacking this defense with these players, this quarterback, this offensive line, Who would I be targeting? What mismatches am I exploiting? What's the soft underbelly? And some weeks the soft underbelly is going to be run Jordan Howard. Just run him and run him and run him and run him into submission. So this is the new task, and the riches for Carson Wentz, and this is another reason to love Carson Wentz. The riches are there, but week to week, there might be peaks and valleys that make you queasy.
You got to be like the kicker and water boy. Find the weak spot.
Yeah.
I can't finish that quote, or Joe will email us.
Yeah.
Anyway, either you're doing a Mike Tyson impression, or I've been pronouncing Arcega Whiteside's name wrong.
It's Catalan. It's from Barcelona. Yes, the C is a TH.
Okay. Okay. Arcega Whiteside. That'll take some time.
Yeah.
I'm holding on to my Mac Hollins stock.
Yeah.
Like, please just do something. So preseason watch list. There's some really interesting names here for these backup receivers. Carlton Agudasi.
Yep.
Right. We talk about big body guy. Braxton Miller.
Yeah.
Braxton Miller's one of those, like, he's still in the league. But again, athletic profile. So Arcega Whiteside, like all these names, they picked up DeAndre Tompkins as a free agent. Like, they've got some interesting names here to watch for in the preseason.
Yeah, some names that could, again, get picked up elsewhere. But Hollins, so you have the four, Jeffrey, Jackson, JJAW, and Aguilar. And then there's a fifth, probably. Sheldon Gibson has been with the team for a little while. He can contribute on special teams. Mac Hollins, similarly injured, but he can contribute on special teams. You have Braxton Miller, more of a slot type. Greg Ward, another former quarterback slot type. Charles Johnson's interesting. He said in the offseason he found his love for football again, and he was in the AAF. It's going to be interesting to watch. He saw the AAF refugees trying to make it in the NFL. He was one of the most prominent, or the most prominent, honestly, to people that watch that. So he certainly has a lot to offer athletically. So a lot of interesting names here. And again, it just shows you how the Eagles are managing things, that other teams are going to be looking at their cuts for their final roster spots.
Somebody could get a gem off some skill position player the Eagles cut. Yeah. And that could be one of their running backs, and that could be one of their receivers, maybe not one of their tight ends. But, and here's the thing, like, I'm not even mad at Zach Ertz, because we love Dallas Goedert. There's no question there. But I'm not even mad at Zach Ertz, because Ertz is going to do his thing. Like, Ertz is that known quantity. I'm more mad at Nelson Aguilar, because I think that, and you broke it down talking about play percentage, right? 50% spits. Like, Aguilar versus Goddard is where, and I'm leaning Goddard, of course, but like that playing time for those two. And again, how do you make a defense declare? You're going to put two tight ends out there. Jordan Howard will be in the backfield. The defense is going to be like, this is heavy, and they'll stay in base. And then all of a sudden, Goddard's going to beat you deep. Like, I'm excited, Bloom. Ertz, known. Okay, do his thing.
Right.
Plenty there with Ertz. Plenty. But man, I love talking about Dallas Goedert.
So Ertz is, going to cost you a third-round pick. It wasn't just the touchdown spike. I mean, he stayed central in this pass offense. Will he take a step back? Maybe a little bit, just because of the embarrassment of riches in this passing game. So I'm probably not targeting him. I'm okay with Travis Kelce early, and there's a ton of options late, including one, Dallas Goedert. So if Goddard and Aguilar are roughly playing the same amount of snaps, roughly getting the same amount of targets, it's interesting because Aguilar is barely fantasy relevant with that, but those opportunities could make a low-end tight end one for fantasy. And if Ertz goes down, oh boy. And Goddard, again, star of the spring, a mismatch nightmare. So he's going to be also a rare big play tight end. So if you wait at tight end, you have some of the oldsters, guys like Greg Olsen and Jimmy Graham and Jordan Reed and Delaney Walker. But you have the youngsters, Goddard, and then our guy. And here's the one mentioning Cecil. And again, this is going to be number one and the most mentions in the preseason watch list that isn't in the team, Mark Andrews, who even has Greg Rosenthal gushing. Greg Rosenthal doesn't gush about anybody. He's like the coolest customer in our whole community, and he's gushing about Mark Andrews. So somehow we turn this into a Mark Andrews take.
Talking about Dallas Goedert. How's that happen?
Yeah.
Goddard, whatever.
I don't know. You tomato, vanilla.
Mm-hmm. I say tomato, and she says, oh, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Anyway, Will Tye, I want to know if he can still play.
Right.
Like the Will Tye fall off was very interesting. Again, preseason watch list, so we're talking about Will Tye, but like his fall off was very interesting because
Right.
last time he like really played, he was productive.
Yeah, and this team likes to use 2 and even 3 tight end sets. So Richard Rodgers, who had some contract, the great Hail Mary catch. Joshua Perkins has hung around as the 3rd tight end. And then there's Will Tye, who went from undrafted free agent to almost a starter. But Cecil, I really thought you were going to say, we'll tie this up for you so that we can get it back together and finish up the NFC East on the Audible. Next, should anybody care about Washington?
I'm not that witty, Bloom. Not that was a good one though.
Yeah.
We'll tie this up for you in a nice pretty little bow, because that is a wrap for the preseason watch list for the Eagles. It's 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. Bloom, so many teases, so many possibilities. So I'm going to do a tease for Washington, and then I want you to do a tease for Washington, Bloom, because it's writing teases. I don't write these out. I just off the top of my head. That's why they're awful. But that's why they vary in quality. Let's say that. But like writing teases is fun because you want to keep the listener. I call it stay in your car type moment, right? Podcasting is different because you can shut us off and start us up at any other time. But in the terrestrial radio world, you want to keep someone listening. Time spent listening is a big measurement for your ratings. And it is a ratings based business. I know that there's other stations out there that are like, oh, don't worry about the ratings. They're awful. Nobody listens. But no, it's the ratings don't matter. No, we're in a performance-based business, ratings, downloads, etc. So I will do the tease for Washington, Bloom, and then I want you to do one because there's so many ways you could go. So here's my tease. Is this the year that Adrian Peterson actually falls off? Or, like Yoda says, is there another in Washington's backfield? That's next. Your tease.
How's the most expensive offense in the league the worst offense in the league? That next.
I like your tease better.
Yeah.
And it is next as we roll on.
Beautiful.
All right, 3, 2, 1. We're tying a bow on the NFC East here on the preseason watch list. It is the Audible, footballguys.com, and we're doing it with Washington and pouring one out for Alex Smith, man.
Yeah.
Good friend Mark Schlereth has done plenty of stuff with like Joe Theismann and everything. And like Alex Smith multiple times has almost lost his leg. Alex Smith is one of the nicest guys out there, hardest working, all that. Like you root for the good guys in this league, right? And there's some really good guys that people don't talk about enough, and there's some horrible guys that people talk about too much. But anyway, like before we jump into like could Case Keenum hold off Dwayne Haskins, the answer is no. Let's just pour one out for Alex Smith. Man.
Yeah, and it's tough. And then also it leads into a material question about this team because it is are some of these things, these medical situations being mishandled? I mean, the Darius Geis and the numerous extra procedures he had to have. And then the straw that stirs the drink in this offense, Trent Williams, who isn't showing up, and we don't know when he's going to show up. And apparently with something on his scalp that the team ignored. I don't know the specifics, but it ended up being a big scare, and he's just frustrated. And I think you could see a Dwayne Brown kind of situation where he's just going to sit out until they trade him because the well is poisoned. So, that's in the background here. I hope that really wasn't a material thing in Alex Smith's situation, but you really do hate to see this. But what it sets up for fantasy, I hate to be cold-blooded like this, Cease, but I think that one of the easiest things you can do in your fantasy prep, and we can challenge this as we step through the Washington offense, is just don't take any Washington players. I mean, it seems pretty elementary to me.
Yeah, this Washington situation on the medical tip reminds me of, remember when Tampa Bay was like 5 years ago or whatever? Everybody had like that weird staph infection or whatever. Like, okay, athlete's foot goes around the locker room, whatever. Everyone grabs some Crocs or whatever. But
okay.
I
thought you were going to say something else other than the athlete's foot.
So many ways I could go with that, but I will keep it above ground.
Yeah, a little penicillin. Yeah,
knocks it right out. Dwayne Haskins could knock out Case Keenum. How about that?
Yeah.
God bless Case Keenum. Again, hardworking guy, nicest guy ever. He's just not good at football. Wasn't good with the Broncos. Won't be good with Washington. I expect Dwayne Haskins to start from day one. Bloom, do you agree?
If it was rational team management, I would. And for that matter, I mean, they probably should trade Trent Williams and maybe even Brandon Scherf if they don't intend on extending him, and look to the future. And you look to the future, and the future of this team is Dwayne Haskins. And they did have him fall to them. They didn't have to give up a boatload of picks to move up and get him. So that's a good. But this team has to be looking at this like what Miami's doing. Come on. Be honest with yourself. Look in the mirror. Look at where this team is going. I know they were 6-2 or whatever, almost making the playoff. Sorry, it's not happening this year. Okay. So first thing we hear in training camp cease is equal rep. All three of them are going to get first team rep. Why? Colt McCoy and Case Keenum are so different than Dwayne Haskins. You want to get your offensive line used to the clock of Dwayne Haskins. You want to get your receivers used to the zip that he puts on the ball. I mean, imagine catching passes from Colt McCoy, pop gun arm, and I love Colt McCoy, and then catching one from Dwayne Haskins. You're a slant. You're going to be doing a lot of quick passing, especially with Trent Williams isn't out there. So with the difference between a quick slant from Dwayne Haskins and a quick slant from Case Keenum or Colt McCoy, I mean, you want your guys. This is we're looking long term here. So I want to open up Twitter and see they've announced that Dwayne Haskins is going to be the starter. He's going to get all the first team snaps. That's the chance for at least some, I don't want to call it success, like just not failing every week in this offense. But it's Washington, so they're probably not going to manage it in a good way.
It is Washington, and it's still Jay Gruden, Bloom, because you mentioned Miami. Like, Miami,
Gase is gone. Yeah,
Gase is gone, and new staff, and Gase is staring at tacos and all that. I mean, like, now Washington's still stuck with Jay Gruden just trying to save his job. And doesn't that just reek of desperation? Like this whole everything in this episode just reeks of desperation.
Yeah, well, look, this is one of those situations where it really goes up to the top, and it really is a culture situation. Bruce Allen's name comes up here too. And until these things change, it's hard to imagine this organization changing. That being said, they've got some good players. And the question is, can the players be so good that they just overcome a bad situation? Maybe that's the case for Dwayne Haskins down the line. Maybe he elevates this passing game, but not this year, and it's certainly not Colt McCoy, and it's certainly not, and who, by the way, they put out there, they were ready to play him on that broken leg. It's just showing you again. So yeah, Washington. This is going to be. See, this is going to be one of our episodes filled with a lot of huffing and puffing, and blowing the houses down.
Right? Why are you a Washington fan?
Like, well, you're born into it. Born into it. Hey. Now, see, this is where things. I don't want to get. There's fandom that you're born into, and this is like Matt Waldman and the Browns. When you're born into it, you're just born. It's like family, man. It's like that Lammey reputation that follows you, right? But you then you take it, and one day you're proud and you wear it proudly. And may that day, I mean, the Washington, when we were kids, they had the Hogs, they had the Smurfs. I mean, they had that was a team to be proud of. If you grew up as a kid rooting for John Riggins running through that line against the Dolphins, if you give that up because of Dan Snyder might make you give that up. This is a much more interesting conversation than Washington's outlook this year.
It's how I look at Knicks fans. There's your basketball reference, Bloom.
Willis Reed.
Right back at you.
Wow, a basketball reference and a baseball reference. We're only 3 divisions in. You're spreading your wings.
Willis Reed was 1970, bro. We weren't even born then. And
but everybody, or Clyde Frazier with the sartorial splendor.
Yeah.
But see, you really are becoming the face of the fan. That's good, man.
Yeah. That's another podcast. Do we have to talk about? I think we talked about the quarterbacks, right?
Yeah. We can turn
complaining about Washington now. Yeah. It's like, why are you a fan? Like, seriously, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel Snyder. Okay. Adrian Peterson. All right. Let's see what he can do. And Darius Guice.
Yeah.
Was there another setback? Like, seriously, like every time I turn around, like he's okay. Oh God, there's a little setback, and then he's okay, and then there's a setback. Like, seriously, during the last year, there's probably been 3 or 4 setbacks for Darius Guice.
Right. And he's a breathtaking, wonderful running back.
Oh, God, yes.
But in this situation, so it's possible that Darius Guice is falling enough in drafts to be interesting. 6th, 7th, 8th round. I mean, you never really contemplated you'd get him that late. Last year, he was a 3rd round pick in a situation that wasn't that much better than this one. But there was no Adrian Peterson on the roster. They bring him back. And this team is just not going to have favorable game scripts. The defense, I don't think, is be quite as good as it was last year. So Darius Geis could overcome this just sheerly by talent, but he's not going to have a big role in the passing game. That's Chris Thompson for as long as he's healthy, at least. So in Chris Thompson, also, you're looking at Chris Thompson available, or maybe even going undrafted after he's been in PPR, a strong running back too. Even last year, he's putting up some numbers, but again, in a dysfunctional offense. So, I mean, I understand if you're dabbling in some Darius Geis, 6th, 7th, 8th round potential lead back. And if they don't use Adrian Peterson as more than a backup, it could work out. But look at are you taking Darius Geis or Darrell Henderson as far as someone that can really help your team put them over the top? Or Darius Geis at any number of receivers that are available? Or even if you're reaching for Carson Wentz or Kyler Murray or the quarterback you want, I think that's a better use of those picks than Darius Geis, even after he continues to fall down the draft board.
It is a memo on preseason watch list. Pay attention to who we talk about outside of their episode.
Yeah.
Because as I'm thinking about Samaje Perine, I'm like, man, I hope I didn't curse David Montgomery as my motorboat rookie of the year, because I love David Montgomery. But damn it, I love Samaje Perine, and he's just awful. He's terrible in the NFL. So Chris Thompson there, I really love Bryce Love. Is this going to be a redshirt year for Bryce Love? Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if he can recapture 2 years ago, think of Mike Davis. And honestly, and it's a different style, right? But Mike Davis at South Carolina was the man and one of the best running backs in the country. And then his final year, he's like, I don't really care. And it was awful. And then we've seen with Mike Davis, like, okay, got to stay healthy, blah, 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 blah. But when he does, there's something there. With Bryce Love, that talent doesn't leave you.
No.
That natural God-given ability to set up defenders. I always say with running backs about creating your own space. And Bryce Love can create his own space with moves, with speed, with vision, and with great footwork. And yes, injuries happen, but that doesn't go away. When Bryce Love comes back, he's the best running back on this team.
Yeah. Or at least the most versatile and acceleration.
Now, they'll screw it up because it's Washington, and why are you a Washington fan?
Right.
But like, Bryce Love is that good.
I think so too. I think there was an argument for him in the top 2 or 3 of this running back class. The player you described before the injury. Now, is he going to get it all the way back? These things we've learned to not pencil in as a given. But I think that Love is the guy that we care about from a dynasty perspective. But you're still projecting this as a Love Geis backfield, which is great for the offense as it comes along. That's probably not this year.
Let's get to those wide receivers. And what about this year with Josh Doxson and Terry McLaurin, who, wow, was he damn impressive at the Senior Bowl earlier this year. So Doxson, Terry McLaurin, throw in Paul Richardson if you want. Again, kind of known quantities here, and we're kind of bag. All the Washington fans are like, unsubscribe. Like, sorry.
We love
sorry.
You. No, hey, this is out of love. We love that you give yourself over to this team. We just hate that you get nothing back. And may you have your Cleveland moment, the misery eventually resulting in something. But look, I'm just going to throw all these wide receivers together. If you are going to take a Washington receiver, it should be in a PPR league around the end of your draft. Take Trey Quinn. Because simply by the offense being so dysfunctional, he could catch 80 or 90 balls this year because he's going to be the high percentage target. He's going to be the guy getting open early in routes. He's going to be that slot machine. Then you have Josh Doxson. I think it's clear that he's just not that into football, really. I mean, he's not into football enough to unlock his vast physical gifts. It's just, maybe something could happen, some life-changing experience can happen, but I'm not counting on it. Paul Richardson is an excellent deep threat, just needs to stay healthy. Same, rinse, repeat, but this is not going to be an offense that creates overachievers. Terry McLaurin is interesting because he's with his college quarterback, good separation, good speed, good route runner, dynasty stash. Okay. Kelvin Harmon, who a lot of people had as a top 10 receiver in this draft, fell because he doesn't separate, because he doesn't have that athleticism, but he's a tough customer after the catch. He's a tough customer at the catch point. He's a crafty receiver. Obviously, he knows how to be productive. He's going to be a really interesting guy to watch in the preseason to see if he looks like, hey, the league was just wrong. He should have been more of a 3rd round pick, and he has a future as a starter in this league. There's Robert Davis and his athletic ability. There's J.U. Chesson, who was there with Amara Darbo. These are 2 guys that are hanging on, Michigan receivers, hanging on for dear life. The Chiefs actually gave up a decent amount of draft capital to move up for Chesson. He doesn't even make it into the 3rd year, 2nd year even, I think, of his rookie deal. or with them. So, these are going to be some players to watch. But, this gives you the picture, right? Of tell me a story where this offense is even mediocre in NFL terms this year. How is that even possible? And that's before Trent Williams decides, hey, I'm pretty much done with this organization. You take the pretty much out of the picture.
You know what's funny, Bloom?
Yeah.
As we do these shows, and I chop them up for iTunes, because on YouTube we do the whole division at once. On iTunes, this will be 4 different shows, and they're generally about the same time. Like we don't script this out or anything. Like we're just doing it. We're doing the show, and they're generally about the same time, except for the teams that we don't feel as highly about. I predict this will be a shorter episode.
Yeah.
Don't have the running clock in my head.
I don't know. We're ranting a lot, though. We're being very self-indulgent.
Yes. And again, apologies to Washington fans. I wish your team was better.
Yeah.
I wish they were better run at the top.
I wish Jordan Reed could stay healthy.
I wish that Bruce Allen wouldn't throw Doug Williams under the bus every time he gets a chance to.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, go out there and talk about some decision I made. Anyway.
Okay.
Tight end, we know.
Yeah.
Jordan Reed, we know.
Mm-hmm.
Stay healthy, we know.
Yeah.
He is there. Fine tight end. He's your Tyler Eifert of Washington. Vernon Davis, we know.
Right.
Like, let's throw all these tight ends in. Like,
sure.
Yeah, we know.
Well, look, and Jordan Reed's one of that well, he's not really geriatric. His body is geriatric. And I just think if you want to take a shot on a tight end who might be more likely to get hurt than others, it's Greg Olsen, or it's Jimmy Graham, or it's Delaney Walker before it's Jordan Reed this year because of the surroundings. Vernon Davis can still play. Vernon Davis is still like one of the 10 or 15 most athletic tight ends in the league, even though he's 70 or 60% of what he was before. There was a time there when we said, well, when Reed gets hurt, Davis is an interesting guy to pivot to on the waiver wire. I think that time is gone. I'll say this, Jeremy Sprinkle, tight end of the future here, good blocker, at least an adequate receiver, and it gives us a chance to say Arkansas Razorbacks, Clayton Gray. So that's
One
exciting.
nation under Hog.
One nation under Hog, yes. Donald Parham's already bounced around, but he's a tall drink of water, athletic, pass catching tight end, I think, from Stetson. So he's going to get a chance maybe to make this team. But yeah, this is, hey, on the plus side, Washington preseason games, a chance to see your future, maybe the November, December games too.
Yeah. Why do we say tall drink of water? I feel like Jordan Maxwell must have done a video on this somewhere.
Yeah.
Point to fact.
Lanky.
That is a wrap. Go deep cuts here on the show. That is a wrap for the NFC East and the preseason watch list, and certainly Washington as a whole. It's 32 teams, 32 episodes, and 32 minutes of complaining about Washington. Oh, boy. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. We certainly appreciate each and every one of you for watching here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. It really helps. It does help the channel and help spread the videos. And like, if you like and you comment, then it puts it in more recommended, like YouTube's algorithm, whatever. I'm just glad they haven't banned us anyway.
No.
So now for saying that they will, but anyway, so thank you guys for listening on iTunes, man. We love you guys on iTunes. So thanks much there for the great Sigmund Bloom. I'm Cecil Lammey saying, stay tuned and stay frosty.